Jory serves as the Colorado Protective Services Security Advisor, or PSA, for the U.S. Department of Homeland Security Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA. Jory works to understand, manage, and reduce risk for critical partners. She connects stakeholders in industry and government to resources, analysis, and tools to help ensure secure and resilient infrastructure for Americans. Prior to her current position, Joy served as a chair for the CISA's State, Local, Tribal, and Territorial Government Coordinating Council. She also previously served as Colorado's Infrastructure Protection Program Manager and Cyber Intelligence Lead for the state of Colorado. Jory graduated from Regis University with a Master of Science in Criminology and from the University of Colorado with a Bachelor's in Political Science. Folks, please help me welcome Jory Maes.
Thank you. It's an honor to share the stage today with such distinguished speakers, both Reverend Hutchins, and then today, later, you get to hear Dr. Nicoletti, one of my favorite speakers. So first of all, I want to say how proud I am of Colorado. Not only is this the 8th Safety and Faith Summit, but last night I also was speaking at a Protecting Houses of Worship event where we had so many denominations out in Aurora, Colorado. And I will say that there are plenty throughout the year in other counties throughout Colorado where we have leaders like yourselves that are interested in making a difference. And with that, I'm going to talk a little bit about your leadership. I think you are here for a reason. You are the people that are the substance, right? That we just heard about. So when I say substance, I mean you're not here in listen only mode. This is going to be an interactive hour, 45 minutes, first of all. And second of all, we're going to pin some roses on you today. You are going to be the people that are here to learn. You're now motivated, but there's some action items that you're walking away with. So today I'm going to talk about how you're going to secure your house of worship. And you're the one that's here listening. Some of you have pen and paper. Some of you just have your cell phones and you're taking pictures. And please don't be shy. Get out your cell phones, take pictures of the slides. There's websites on here. And what I'm going to do today is teach you systematically how to approach this issue, how of securing your house of worship. I'm going to give you a plethora of resources. Some of you may come from a place where you have a security plan. It's comprehensive, it's well developed. You're doing training, you're doing exercises, and you only you're at an A and you need to get to an A plus. And some people here may have not even started the conversation. And that's fine because I have resources for all of you. We're going to get to the place where we can crawl, walk, run if we need to. And so you are here because you're going to be the leaders. And so that sounds like a heavy lift, right? But what we are going to do is, next slide, please, start with step one, which is how do you build a team? How do you get started and build a team to support what you are going to start in your house of worship? So I want to ask, how do you get that started, right? The first thing is you've got to build and understand what the vision is in your facility. Now, that can be a challenge. You're going to have two camps. You're going to have a camp of, we want to keep all the doors open. We're going to want to welcome everyone in. This is a place where we want to bring people in and feel very inviting. And then you may have another camp of people that want to feel very secure, that want to lock everything up. And so my suggestion to you is to start out by just naming that tension right off the bat, right? And by naming the tension and by naming that challenge, you'll be able to address it. And other places have done that and found very creative and helpful ways of addressing that challenge. So let's talk about how to build a team. When you're building a team that's going to help you with your security plan, I want to ask the audience, and there's going to be a couple people with microphones, so feel free to raise your hand and give some suggestions. Who might you have available to you that you would want to put on your team? Any ideas? Okay, law enforcement or military. Who else? Fi- Firefighters and first responders, physicians and nurses. Good. Who else might be good to have on your team? Kids ministry. Okay. People person, maybe a facilitator, right? That can help facilitate those tensions. Good idea. Who else might be good to have on a team? Concealed carry. And I'm glad you brought that up because I want to readdress that. That's a great point. Who else? How about maybe somebody who's a grant writer or an accountant? How about a teacher? How about a security technician? How about, um, let me ask you, who's the most important person on the team? The communicator, the maintenance man? So I'm going to quote one of my favorite people, Commander Sam McGee out in Aurora PD. It's the person you forgot, right? It's the person who isn't there. So why don't I say that I want you to think about your team, and as you're working with this team, consider as you're moving along the planning process, are we missing somebody? Who else maybe should be here on this team? Could we have added someone else that could make us a better team? So try to remember that part. The other thing that should be considered is safety doesn't mean the same thing to everyone. Consider a dimly lit parking lot. Does it feel the same to everyone? And does it matter to have diversity on your team? And when I say diversity, gender diversity, diversity in a lot of different ways. How about access and functional needs on that team? Somebody who's considering folks who have disabilities on that team, right? So as you start to build your team, think about having visible diversity and what that means to people who have to respect the policies that are made by that team. And be able to hear, back to your communication point, a facilitator that's able to pull out the viewpoints and really hear the viewpoints of everyone on the team. So building a team is a really important piece, and understanding the goal and the vision of the leadership of your um, group. Okay, so I'm going to pull this off here. Okay, so you need to understand the threats that your facility faces. So having a threat assessment and doing that right up front needs to encompass a couple things, not just the man-made threats that we talk about, the natural threats that your facility faces. Maybe you're in a place where you get really some weather. We all get, we know what weather is here. You've got accidents. Are you near a place where there might be a chemical event, right? Do you have someone on your team that maybe could contribute to cybersecurity for your organization? So if you have a threat assessment, then you can build a security plan with context to the threats you've identified, right? And then, next slide, please. The next thing you can do is find out where you're starting from and where you need to improve. So you can do a security self-assessment. Now, at the bottom of this slide, you can see there's a link, and that link is at the bottom of all of our slides, or you can write down CISA.gov. CISA.gov is CISA.gov. If you were to Google CISA.gov faith-based, you'll find all of the resources I'm going to show you today. And then you're also going to see there's two different assessments. There's like an interactive tool, and there's one you can download, or you can call me and I can help guide you through an assessment of your facility. There's two benefits to doing this. The first one is it's going to help you know where to start, where you should start, and how far you've already come and where to go, and you can revisit this as you start to make improvements and track those. The other piece is if you decide to go ahead and apply for grants, this is the tool that they're going to ask you if you've already used, because other institutions are also using the same tool, and this will be something that you can use to advocate for the things you're asking to spend money on, and it'll help you to know what you can ask for. Next slide, please. Okay, so you'll want to then begin to implement security improvements. There are things that don't cost a lot of money. Obviously, when you get grants, it can take a while, into a year plus, if you get it the first round. So there's three types of plans, right? So you've got a comprehensive security plan. You might have business continuity plans like if you can't show up, how else can you continue to offer the services, the critical services you offer to your community members? And then there's emergency operation plans. And I'm going to give you a link to emergency action plans, sorry. So those emergency action plans are like what to do if there's an active shooter. What do you do if there's a bomb threat? What do you do if there's an earthquake? What in that moment do you do? And a comprehensive security plan is a lot different. It's more about how do we lock our doors? When do we lock our doors? How do we train our ushers? Right? So there's those three type of plans. Those are things you don't need a lot of funding for. And those are some of the things you can get started on right away. You can implement those type of security improvements. So you'll want a multi-layered plan. Then you need to think about how do you implement a culture where you start to care a lot about security? This is something on everyone's mind. And I'll tell you that you need to think about snackable information. People are on social media. We get fast, short pieces of information, and that's what our brains are used to consuming. That's what's, I think, palatable. And so what I'm going to give to you today is a couple of resources that are just things you can include in newsletters, things you can talk about and train to, and those things I think about as snackable information. And those will be coming up next. Physical security measures, right? So those are things that can be a lot more expensive, but if you've got that grant writer on your team, or perhaps you've got funds built in for security for your facility, those are things like that you're going to think about with your threat assessment. If your threat assessment says, we're really concerned about a high-speed avenue of approach by our entrance, we need to set up some type of a barrier to our lobby to prevent a vehicle ramming into the lobby. How do we want to do that? Do we want to put big planters in front? Do we want to park a car in front while we have people entering our lobby and then have it exit? Let's talk about some options to consider. Do we want to add cameras? Do we have an intrusion detection system? Do we have a safety system? Do we have sufficient lighting so that we can see in areas that there could be someone hiding, right? Are we locking the doors during our services, and do we have a greeter at the doors that we leave open? So do we have sufficient locks? And what do those look like? Are they keyed locks? Do we have prox cards that we're using? And who has access? And are we keeping track of who has access to those cards and those keys? So as we go through the physical security measures, those set assessments will help you determine kind of where you're at and where you need to go. And then lastly, cybersecurity best practices. Listen, you are probably in a group where somebody has some skills with cybersecurity, and if you're not, our website is chock full of how to get started. And if you feel like you're pretty good and you just need to get better, we've got the resources for you to get there. So I won't spend a lot of time on cybersecurity, but certainly on CISA.gov, we've got plenty of resources there to get you started. And I'm happy to help you navigate through that. Next slide, please. Okay, just to get started, the Power of Hello is one of these snackable information packets that you can use to train both your staff, your volunteers, and also your congregation. Next slide, please. So the Power of Hello is really very, very simple. The idea is to be vigilant of your surroundings, to understand what's normal for your area and what's not normal. When something is out of place, when there is something suspicious, perhaps it's a package, it's someone taking pictures covertly, entering spaces that they're not supposed to enter. Um, Maybe you're talking to them, asking questions they're not answering, uh, things that you wouldn't normally see. How do you start by approaching them? Hello, how can I help you? I'm observing this behavior, right? You're noticing them, you're approaching them. And then how do you navigate that risk next? So their response to that is very important. It might just be they're taking pictures because they're an architecture student taking pictures of the building, right? Or they're taking pictures of the security camera or the locks. That's those two very different things. And then obtain help. Do you need to call law enforcement? Do you need to report? Do you have a reporting procedure within your facility to say, hey, this didn't make sense to me? Do you have that, and have you trained to how to report, how to see something and say something inside your facility for those volunteers? So this Power of Hello is just a placemat that you can use to train in your newsletter, train your staff, train your volunteers. Next slide, please. Okay, the next thing is personal security considerations. Next slide, please. This is another one of those placemats where you're reminding people how to stay safe. And we're not just talking about staying safe in your facility, but how to stay safe at school, at the grocery store, how to stay safe when you're walking to your car after work. Put your cell phone away. Pay attention to your surroundings. And what is the difference between having a bias and recognizing suspicious activity, right? So we're not saying sexual orientation, race, gender, these type of things. We're talking about suspicious behavior. And then what are you reporting? So if you're going to report something, it has to be something law enforcement can follow up on. A license plate, right? The make and model of a vehicle, a description of a location, of where this person was, where they were coming from, all of the different pieces of information that you would need to use where it could actually result in a successful investigation of your report. So the personal security considerations placemat is a really nice tool to use for you to train, again, your staff, your volunteers, and your congregation to be safer. Next slide, please. The next resource for you for your security improvements is our Securing Soft Targets in Crowded Places guide. It's a pretty long guide, but it's a great one. You're in a soft target. We want to maintain an open, welcoming atmosphere. So to ease that tension, this is a terrific place to start with suggestions on how to do that, how to maintain that environment, but also how to secure it through information sharing, how to secure it through keeping everyone aware and building that culture of security. Next slide, please. And then your active assailant security resources. I can't stress enough what a great resource this is. Everyone has a role in this. So there's a lot of run, hide, fight videos out there. for active assailant events. But I really like the FBI's most recent Run, Hide, Fight video series, which is on their website, and it's also part of the guide. I'm not going to show the one today because, well, it's in a bar and we're in a church. But it's a great one, and it's one that I think is very effective to really talk about Run, Hide, Fight. But I just want to pause for a second and talk about the idea about Run, Hide, Fight during an active shooter event. First of all, I want to stress run. The farther away from a threat you get, the better chance you have of surviving that event. So the big word is run. As far as you can get and keep going. If you do encounter law enforcement, that's where you have to have your hands up and your fingers spread and then report what you see. If you see how many shooters, what type of weapons they were, what were they wearing, where were they in the building, if you were asked, and then keep going. If you're leaving the building, you can encourage people to go with you, but you need to still go. You don't stay, right? You don't choose to stay. You choose to go and encourage people to go with you. That's the big piece. If that isn't an option and you have to hide, there's a big difference between cover and concealment, okay? Cover is behind something that's going to stop a bullet. That's something heavy, like a cinder block wall, a vehicle, a heavy door. Concealment is just hiding, but that's not going to help a whole lot, right? So this podium isn't going to help me a whole lot. And so hiding is the second option, not a great option, and you want cover over concealment. And if you are having to hide, you are already planning your fight while you're hiding, right? In case you encounter the active assailant. That means that you have to think about a fight, and fights are never fair. There's no such thing as a fair fight. And this is not a comfortable thing to talk about in a church. But we are talking about run, hide, fight. And so as a last measure in a run, hide, fight situation, that's one of the things, to consider. Next slide, please. So we talked about plans. I want to really stress this guide. FEMA came out with the Guide for Developing High-Quality Emergency Operation Plans for Houses of Worship. And this is a terrific template. If you have a cell phone and you want to take a picture of this slide, you can Google it. It's on our website. It's on the FBI's website, FEMA's website. It's a great guide. So as you're starting to write the plans, which, like I said, there's the 3 plans you can get started with. This is a terrific template for you to use for your emergency action plans. Now, this is going to go over a lot of different types of threats that you can need to consider. Again, there's 3 categories of threats. There's natural hazards, man-made hazards, technological hazards that include accidents. Those are the 3 groups of things for you to consider to keep everyone safe. Next slide, please. Okay, I'm gonna just let you know that we've got on our website a whole de-escalation series. It's probably nowhere near what you're going to hear later on with Dr. Nicoletti, but just be aware that we've got material available for you to train with on our website on cisa.gov for de-escalation, should you need that when you're training your folks. And that's to help you with de-escalation until you've got perhaps law enforcement arriving. Next slide, please. Okay. Grants. So again, FEMA has the Nonprofit Security Grant Program, and that's administered by the state of Colorado, the Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Management. I've got the links to both. And I will tell you that they do a terrific job reaching out to the community and helping guide you through the process. The self-assessment tool links that I showed you earlier are a great place to start, and they can help guide you through what to ask for, what's not gonna work. You can't ask for a vehicle, you can't ask for cameras, those type of things. And really, they have a tremendous staff to aid you through that process, but having someone available to you that's familiar with grant requests is gonna help you tremendously as well. Next slide. The next thing is what to do when you receive a bomb threat. So there's a series of questions. If you were to go to what to do when you receive a bomb threat, it's what kind of questions would you want to ask? And this is just kind of a bomb threat card for the person who would be answering the phone at your facility. Next slide. And lastly, Stop, Think, Connect is where you might get started with your cybersecurity if you're really just getting started. So we've got, that's kind of on the big board of cybersecurity, that might be where you start. That's your starting block. Next slide, please. And the last step after you implement the security improvements, before I say the last step, there's one more thing. We have the Office of Bombing Prevention at CISA. And the Office of Bombing Prevention has a terrific virtual series. And this virtual series allows you to do online training on recognizing incendiary devices, on surveillance detection, on recognizing suspicious activity and what to do about it. And there's just always new classes, really, on with our Office of Bombing Prevention that's available to you. And so I would say that training comes before exercises, and I would be remiss not to tell you that that's also a free service available. Everything on here is free. So that's also a free service available to you. And so after training, after planning, you've got the ability to test and exercise. So you can take your security group and you can exercise your plans that you now have written. So we've got, if you've never done an exercise, we have exercises in a box for faith-based institutions, houses of worship. For example, we have this interfaith community tabletop exercise. This is one where you can kind of cut and paste, it's fillable, you take out what you want, and you exercise the plans that you just have prepared, your security plans, and then you find out where you need to improve, what didn't work. Maybe you didn't address access and functional needs, and you need to do that. So after you get through this exercise, you get to kind of fix your plans, exercise again, and that's step 4, and then you start again with your team. Next slide, please. Okay. Please feel free to take a picture of my contact information. I am available to help you navigate this whole process. I threw a lot at you today, lots of resources. I'm available also to put eyes on your facility if you need an expert opinion to advise you, as I can walk your facility with you. I can help connect you to your local law enforcement and also to help you with getting that handshake with the grants office. So please feel free to reach out to me. I can help be your advocate, and I can help walk you through the process. So with that, I just want to thank you for allowing me to be here today to support you. I am your support, but you're the leaders. You're the ones that have the roses pinned on you today. You're the substance here. You're spending the time here, and I'm just here to support you. So as I deliver these resources to you, I just want to thank you for your time and what you're doing in your community, and just so proud to be here on the stage here with the speakers here today. So thank you very much.